They're gonna kill the love of my life.
David!
If I don't go back to what I was doing.
Our line of work is quite brutal and quite ruthless.
How far would you go for love?
You steal truck, bring it to me. Then you make your money.
Is it dangerous?
Of course it's dangerous!
Nicholas Hoult, Felicity Jones, with Ben Kingsley and Anthony Hopkins.
All this trouble, all this pain, for love.
Collide. Now playing. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning. This is your host, Llorraine Neithardt, and you have reached Venus Unplugged, the virtual Heartbreak Hotel. What we do here is we explore the internal kingdom, world, reality, unconscious of the scope of the human heart and the human soul. What is this world about? Because particularly whatever we don't know about ourselves does return to us as fate. So heartbreak is one of the great teachings. Why does it always happen? All right. It happens because the heartbreak begins when we're in a state of heartbreak, whatever that might be. There's myriads of ways that the heart breaks open. The heartbreak begins to inform us what we don't know about love and ourselves. And sometimes we realize that a relationship must end, and that can end in a breakup, that can end in a death, that can end certainly in growing apart. But it must end because abuse is not love. And we begin to recognize that. So love is a new concept. We've only been experimenting with this free love, a love of choice. We can choose, at least in some parts of the world, we can choose the beloved. That's a new experiment. That's only been around for about 500 years, which people don't realize. They think it was always that way. No. So the last few weeks and the next couple of weeks, I've been working with the four eternal feminine. And these are different types. You know, we're a kaleidoscope of so many possibilities. And although we think the heartache is always the same thing, it's always coming from a different source, a different part of us, a different understanding. So the love ends or breaks or doesn't work anymore at the level of what we understand it. And there's a lot of immaturity. And we're going to change that. We're going to start looking and opening up to possibilities of what's going on inside, because the internal world is informing the external world. And we want to learn to speak the language of the heart, not just romance, but the archetypal forces. And listening to these episodes, listen to it like a song. Just listen to it. You know, the words will come up later. Because, I work in a very Venusian way. You know, it's around and up and through, and it gets there. It will get to you. You'll hear it. You can download all the episodes. You can listen, whatever you want to do to make this work for you. So today we're going to talk about and explore the Amazon. What is that type? We worked with the mother type. We worked with the Hatara type. And now the Amazon. And last week we spoke about Athena, that she is the goddess, the archetypal force that is informs the Amazon of her nature. She's a virgin goddess. She's born out of her father's head. She has no mother. And, in mythology you can do that stuff. And she is the goddess of war and strategy and wisdom. She's a great strategist. So for those of you that are involved and interested in astrology, you would look at where is your Pallas Athena in your chart, and you would get a sense of where you need to develop. Now, I'm particularly fascinated with these four types because these can be stages in our life that we develop. They can be natural archetypal energies that we live but get repressed. I've gotten a few emails from women and realizing that they were definitely Amazon, that that's what they preferred, but they didn't know what that was. Okay, now an Amazon, she fights like a woman. She and strategizes like a woman, not like a man. She's not an inferior man. She is a force to be reckoned with. Okay, so this is also the work of Toni Wolff, her 4 Eternal Types. And she talks about the inferior Amazon. Now, the inferior Amazon, we all know that one because we all bristle when somebody, a woman acts like this. She distinguishes the inferior qualities and the natural shadow accompanying the true Amazon form. The first or lesser-known aspects are preceded by what happens if a woman is not a true Amazon by nature. In Wolff's words, it's an inferior attempt at Amazon behavior. So that's when, you're having a conversation with somebody and suddenly this woman gets totally opinionated. It's like, what the heck is that about? And there's no room for anybody, and it's only her opinion and her force, and it's basically a misuse of power. And nobody really quite believes it, but everybody shuts up because it's like, oh, maybe it will just go away. So this woman may be driven by a masculine protest, and she wants to be equal to her brother, and she will not recognize any authority outside, any outside authority or superiority. She takes an attitude compulsory to the feelings of inferiority. So socially, she can be kind of like a social hyena, and she can have jealous furies, and she takes little time for social life. Her relationships are mostly impersonal. She fights exclusively with her own kind of tactics, power versus mediation. She's insensitive to the agendas of others. Not a good concept in a leader. The woman who is not operating out of her natural Amazon characteristics, she implies that such a woman has a dominant antagonistic attitude as opposed to a healthy competitive stance. So in Jungian terms, that's called the negative animus. Okay, she seems to be gathering all her motivational energy out of repressed rage or anger, the source of which remains unconscious to her and can be projected on any convenient adversary. So she's not coming from this real sense of the Amazonian authority, that she knows how to move through this. She's a natural leader. She knows what needs to be done for the culture to move further. It's an inferior male attitude that just is kind of like a know-it-all and a bully. So when that woman speaks and she's demanding, I'm a woman, hear me roar, but nobody really takes it seriously, or they just get offended because they know there's no authenticity. There's no true Amazon force, because the natural Amazon, she's powerful. You're gonna listen. You're gonna hear it. You may not like her because she may be a different type, but it's authentic. So one way, because with the negative or the inferior Amazon, the one who's not really authentically an Amazon, that's not where her power comes from. The source of her rage may be severe, unconscious, and unaddressed personal wound. But like any of us, when we're speaking from a wound, it's very different. Very, very different. But when we recognize, we have to speak from wounds because that's how we get to know, wow, okay, man, I had no idea. Do you ever start to tell a story and then suddenly you burst out in tears, or tears come, or you get choked up and you didn't realize you were hurt? You didn't realize that was still inside. There's a boo-boo, a little thorn in the puppy's paw. You could take it out. So one way that we spot an inferior Amazon, let's say we're in a group, in the manner in which she cuts people off. She delivers statements as if they were the ultimate, and the final authority on the matter at hand. She is proclaiming a rule that she thinks is infallible. Of course, it's her rules, but is actually her own opinion. and then no further exchange is possible. And so when this happens, everybody shuts up. This is known as the animus attack. The animus is the male aspect within the female. There is both a positive and a negative animus. When the animus speaks with this judgmental opinion, it's not based on anything, it's just their opinion, men just want to strangle you. Okay, they bristle, they attack. Right? We've all done it. We go to say something and we think that we're really saying it from the heart or the highest authority, and we open up our mouth thinking great wisdom is going to come out, and toads come jumping out. Like, what? Oh my God, I just heard what that sounded like. Or you wake up the next morning and think, what in God's name possessed me to even say that? Then you realized you had a momentary archetypal seizure of the negative animus. So, and we all have it, okay, but that is not the authentic Amazon type. So when the animus starts talking like that, see, the positive animus will bring us towards our goals, towards our ideals, towards the wisdom. It's the great ally. It is the great helper. The negative one, and we don't know until that's what this show is about. It's like, let's get conscious of all this stuff, because psyche is like a kaleidoscope. It's all these, if you were to imagine the little broken pieces of glass in a kaleidoscope, that those are the complexes, and within those, each piece of broken glass, which we would see as a complex, within that, the power in that is the archetype that lives within the complex. Now, when something happens in our life, internally or externally, the kaleidoscope turns, and we have a whole new pattern. So there's infinite possibilities, which makes it so fascinating, of how we live and how we perceive. So we try not to become stereotypical, which means a stereotype is an archetype that's lost its soul. And we're far too interesting. Humanity is far too interesting. And that's what we want to start exploring, is all these different aspects of the masculine and the feminine, how this works. Now, the same thing happens in a man. Okay, when a man who has an anima, that's his inner female, she animates, she gives life. So when he's in a negative anima attack, okay, the same thing will happen. Let's give the example of you're in a room, you're at a party, and he begins to say something. Everybody kind of stops and says, "What?" He'll begin to sound whiny and critical and petulant, and it's like, what is the matter with this person? And he's having an anima attack. He's forgotten how to think logically or to present the facts, and he's swimming and it feels, and he's swimming in all this feeling stuff, but it's not formulated, okay? And he gets lost from his center, and for that moment, he is an inferior woman. It's like, what's this guy going through over here? Or he has a temper tantrum. Spoils, or gets filled with envy. So that's what it looks like when this Amazon type, okay? But the natural Amazon, the real deal, okay, her personal complications are dealt with in a masculine way, or is not repressed. She has patience and comprehension for anything still underdeveloped. Sometimes that's lacking. Okay, the true Amazon is like, come on, give her the real deal. She's not good with kids. It's not 2 years old. It's not, well, I'm getting there. It's like, no, if you're going to present something, they're leaders. They very often are heads of CEOs of companies, or they're political figures, or these women, these natural Amazons they are not identified with the man in their life. That's not how they love. Their love is moving the culture further. They have a deep purpose within them. And very often a young Amazon girl it's like, why are you being so competitive? That's her nature. She has a healthy competition. It's not bullying. She has a healthy competition. Okay? And marriage and relationships are looked through as the aspects of achievement, primarily her own. She chooses, not necessarily out of emotion and feeling, she chooses well. She chooses because it will behoove her. She makes an ideal choice, not based on emotion. It's a different kind of love. So when we can see what this is like in us, and we realize, like, whoa, wait a second, I'm really more of an Amazon. I choose to live my life not by mirroring the masculine, but the deep knowing masculine within us. Women have a different masculine than men. So for those of you that identify with that, or realize, wait a second, I have a different way of achieving, start to research what these Amazon women are like. Now, one of a perfect example of an Amazon woman, both in who she was in history and also the Eleanor of Aquitaine. So that's like Middle Ages, right? There's a movie, Lion in Winter, and it's about Eleanor of Aquitaine and Henry. And Eleanor of Aquitaine was a real queen, all right, and an Amazon woman. She believed she was one of the richest women in France. She married Louis VII. She divorced him. She got an annulment. And then she married Henry, who became the King of England. And in this film, Lion in Winter, you get if you wanted to just feel what a true Amazon operates at or like, rent the Lion in Winter with Audrey Hepburn and Katharine Hepburn and Peter O'Toole. And sit down, because you're going to be exhausted after this. It's so profound. But it's also glorious to see a man standing in his right, a woman standing in her right, in their authentic power. They never give out, they never give up, and they never give in. That's the Amazon, right? So Eleanor of Aquitaine, she was an inspired leader in this culture of the high Middle Ages. And she believed that women were equal, free, and learned, and powerful. And in that time, women were idealized, and a number of celebrities, these aristocratic rock stars. Eleanor of Aquitaine, was one of the first, if not the first, woman troubadour. And the troubadours wrote poetry and songs for court life. Well, they got into a little bit of trouble, okay, because, before, Eleanor of Aquitaine, actually, her court was the first attempt, now this is very important, first attempt, courtly love, and the troubadours was the first attempt at personal love. Before that, you would have love, but marriage was always a legality. It had nothing to do with your heart. So she's bringing in this experiment called personal love that we're tripping over now in our lives and starting to understand, began then. So she was a troubadour. So she was a poet and a writer, and so the troubadours would find their fair maiden and write songs and poetry and have affairs and illegitimate children, and then the church got upset about that, and so they kind of made it that you could have courtly love, but there could be no touching kind of stuff. So here we have this wild time in the Middle Ages, and this breakthrough, this phenomenon of courtly love, and That's our gal, Eleanor of Aquitaine. She brought that in. So if you want to see an example of she had this Athenian, the goddess Athena, love of learning, and the spirit united with Aphrodite's erotic delight, and the beauty of the feminine, and Hera ruled as a queen. So she's got like three of these powerful energies living in her, and she lived it out, and she had the cash to do it. And this period of courtly love, which is the concept of choosing who you love, began, was short-lived, because after that then came the burning years, 300 years of witch burning. So when we see this first attempt, at least in the Western world, it's very important to understand. So of course we don't know a lot about personal love and what's motivating us and what's going on and what is this heartbreak about. Of course, the heartbreak is always, your soul is announcing time to learn, time to grow. And if we could see that and then ask the questions, not why is this happening to me as a victim, but what is this profound message that my evolution, that my soul requires from me, that is now being played out in my love life or in my life. It's, and as I said, it could also be the death of someone. It could be star-crossed lovers. It could be any number of a pet, anything that evokes this pain. We have the courage to face the pain and go through it. We're going to come out with gold. And not only do we make a step in evolution for our own soul, but the whole culture. So love is personal and also transpersonal. And this period of time in history, the people that are alive now, we're kind of writing the code for the next 2,000 years. So this is big stuff to be alive at this time. And to explore this phenomenon, this archetypal need and healing that we call love. So when you see this film, okay, or you read about Eleanor of Aquitaine, you will get such a strong sense of what an authentic Amazon woman is like. She doesn't fight like a man. She fights like an Amazon woman. She's authentic. She has her own way of viewing things. She brings together with wisdom. Okay, so she doesn't have personal interests. Like, oh, I'll feel like such a good person if I save the world. She doesn't give a shit about that. She knows she's destined to move the culture. Now, we're seeing many, 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 many more authentic Amazon women coming into consciousness. And we get this sense of pride. Now, at these powerful women. Now, the shadow aspect of the Amazon woman is, or what she fears, or what is her tragic flaw, she's terrified of vulnerability and neediness. So very few people are just one strict type. So when that comes up in her life, she can collapse. And we all need to know what our tragic flaw is. We can't change it, but we can grow from it. It can bring us wisdom, because it's in the tragic flaw that's the blind spot. And when we can at least acknowledge the blind spot, we can't stop it, but we can relate to it. And that's what makes us divinely human, and that's what we're here for. Of course, human love, that's the ticket. We need to move ahead with this. Another amazing Amazonian queen was Queen Elizabeth I. Okay, now she couldn't go to battle, but she, in that film, she states that she has the heart of a lion. And she does. Another film where we see Or for those of you who know the book Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, she was another phenomenon. She was totally trippy. And that Atlas Shrugged was prophetic in many ways, where she sees the destruction of the Western world due to its power struggle, and then the ideal rebuilding. Remember, the Amazon woman is idealistic, not in a Neptunian way. Not, gee, let's all hold hands, it will be okay. No, she's got a vision, and she takes it on fully. Or, oh my God, in Game of Thrones, for those of you who are watching Game of Thrones, the woman who's the mother of the dragons, Khaleesi, she's the perfect Amazon. She is beloved. She sees the people. The dragons love her. Oh God, I'm crazy about her. She starts as a young woman. She has this royal blood, and of course all the disasters that happen. But little by little, she's building her forces out of the freedom, the free will of the people. And it's just, I'm so into the Game of Thrones. Not to mention the outfits and the hair. Love it. Absolutely love it. Not to mention dragons. What's not to love? There's dragons. So those are examples. So look, maybe part of the hard task is just observe. Do you know any really true, Amazonian women? Okay. They can fight for social justice. Eleanor Roosevelt, who was in some ways America's first female president. She was the power behind the throne, but she really, really brought social justice into the world. Some people think she went a little too far with it, but we're changing. We're definitely changing. But she was very concerned with the welfare of the people and their education and giving them dignity, which is also a very Amazonian experience. And we can have moments where that may not be what our primary type is, but we all have it in us. So it's good to be aware of that so we can call that up. Or sometimes I've seen it happen, certainly with my clients. They're engaged, and everybody thinks it's such a great idea, and they come here and they're in tears, and they realize, I don't want to be married. I don't even know how this happened. And then they discover they're really it's not their identity is not based on relationships. It's not based on the man or the woman. It's really based on being in the world and bringing change into the world. And then there are women who are playing at the Amazon and they don't have any real moral strength. They're just bullies. We know that type too. So just start to discern. Who do you see? Who have you seen in history? Who have we seen in modern politics? Who really authentically are these Amazonian women that's truly their nature? All right. Now, very often men are afraid of the Amazon because she is who she is. She doesn't really care what they think of her. Or they'll say, well, you're not a woman. Well, no, she's an Amazon woman. That's different. See all that intimidation? That's what people go, well, you're not a woman if you do that. Well, how are you? You know what a woman is. And just like we don't know what men are. We can have an idea. Okay? So this is part of what we want to explore, because this is what creates heartbreak and heart awake. So the English lady has spoken, so I've got to bounce. You can download this on the Blog Talk Radio. You can go to my website, LlorainneNeithardt.com. Oh, we're going to be tweeting for 45 minutes after this, so if there's anything that has to do with the Amazons or these types or the show, please tweet. I'm not doing readings over the tweeting, so this is just about information. And so check out the Amazons in your life. Or are you secretly an Amazon and don't know how to contact that? We're going to find out. We're going to do a little more next week, and then we're going to go into the Mediah woman. And the Mediah is, she's kind of like the mystic psychic lady, okay? So Have a beloved week. Oh, yeah, next week's the 4th. Do you believe it? Fantastic. Call me if you need a reading, 212-757-8914, and celebrate. Absolutely celebrate. Never underestimate who you are. Never. Bye.
They're gonna kill the love of my life. If I don't go back to what I was doing.
Our line of work is quite brutal and quite ruthless.
How far would you go for love?
You steal truck, bring it to me. Then you make your money.
Is it dangerous?
Of course it's dangerous!
Nicholas Hoult, Felicity Jones, with Ben Kingsley and Anthony Hopkins.
All this trouble, all this pain, for love.
Collide. Now playing. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. Collide. Now playing. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. Collide. Now playing.